All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Colette Bartow, and I'm the Director of the Content Standards and Instruction team at the Office of Public Instruction. And it's our pleasure, those of us from the Office of Public Instruction who are on this call to support you, to convene this conversation around what school looks like and what the future of learning looks like, learning what we have learned through the COVID-19 experience so far, but to be able to bring together your thoughts and your experiences and ideas to provide guidance as schools and districts begin to plan for the opening of school next fall. So with that brief introduction, we have representatives from across the state and from many different roles and different experiences. And so we'd really like to, again, welcome you. Thank you for stepping forward and expressing your interest in this Montana Learning 2020 Task Force. We'll kind of introduce and go round robin with the OPI staff that are here to support you. I'd like to first introduce and have Dylan Klapmeyer, our Communications Director, say hello and introduce himself.
Thank you, Colette. I really appreciate it and the work that your team is doing to facilitate this meeting today. As Colette said, I'm Dylan Klapmeyer, the Communications Director for OPI. I've interacted with a lot of you over email the last week or so. It's really important to Superintendent Arnson that we get diverse feedback on how distance learning and remote learning or mixed delivery models have gone at the end of this school year, because we've heard from educators and school administrators and just community members, parents from all over the state that schools and families need guidance going into the fall semester, knowing that the fall semester is still going to look a little bit different, even if it's a mixed delivery model and not totally distance learning. So the superintendent put together a couple of task forces. A different task force actually met yesterday that was made up mostly of school administrators, statewide education associations, and the Board of Public Education to look into what sort of flexibilities within rule and statute, both at the federal and state level, that schools need. She also wanted to hear from teachers, parents, students, community members. We're even lucky to have a health official on here, Ty Lean from Prairie County, and some organizations that help support families and educators like the After School Alliance. So we have a very diverse committee here. I want to thank all of you for signing up and agreeing to give your input. And the goal out of all of this is that by the end of June, we really have some tangible resources and supports for families and teachers. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Dylan. With the rest of the OPI team, I just wanted to have each of you identify yourself and give a kind of a brief synopsis of what your role is with the Office of Public Instruction. So let's start with Marissa Graybill, who is going to just share a little bit about who she is.
Hi, I'm Marissa Graybill. I'm the Math Instructional Coordinator here at the Office of Public Instruction, and I'm excited to engage in conversations about professional learning and student learning in the fall.
Thanks, Marissa. How about Carly Cockrell?
Hi, my name is Carly Cockrell, and I'm the Professional Learning Coordinator at the OPI. I'd like to go on record saying that is not Marissa's real bookshelf in the background because it's really fancy. And I'm also excited to be part of this task force and to help with everything that comes out of it. Thank you.
Great. Let's see, let's go to Susan Court.
Hi, I'm Susan Court, and I'm the Health Enhancement Specialist and Youth Risk Behavior Survey Coordinator for the state of Montana here at OPI. I just want to say thank you to Clay and her team for helping us attend this in an easy way that is reducing my angst. And just want to welcome everybody, and I look forward to working with all the experts around our state of Montana.
Thanks, Susan. Camille, how about you?
I'm the assistant director with OPI school nutrition programs, and I work with all the different schools that run the USDA meal programs, the National School Lunch, School Breakfast Program, Summer Food Service Program, and I know being kids has looked a lot different in these last couple of months, and so I'm looking forward to working with you all on how to each of them.
So Camille, I might interpret a little bit for the group. Camille works with the USDA school nutrition programs. Her audio was a bit scratchy there. And just a kind of a note, if we're having audio troubles, don't feel like you have to share your video. Sometimes stopping your video helps to clear up that audio issue. So thanks, Camille. Let's see, how about Dick Treerice, please introduce yourself.
Afternoon, everyone. This is Dick Treerice. I'm the Assistant State Director of Special Education. So we get to work with the 1 out of 8 kids across the state who receive special education and related services.
Thanks, Dick. Donnie Wetzel.
Hello, everyone. My name's Donnie Wetzel. I'm a Tribal Family Community Liaison for OPI, and I'll be working with a lot of tribal consultation and lifting tribal voice in all of our discussions. And it's good to see some of the folks out there. Well, it's good to see all of you. So thank you, Colette.
Thank you, Donnie. And Holly, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I just want to say hi to all the friendly faces we see out there. It's good to see everybody on this. So one thing about virtual meetings is you get to bring people from all over the state together. My name is Holly Mook, and I'm the OPI Coordinated School Health Unit Director. So underneath me, thankful to have Susan Court with Health Enhancement. Also have school safety, school mental health, tobacco use prevention, prevention around child sexual abuse, sex trafficking, substance use prevention, and so on. So I just really appreciate everybody's time and energy here today, and I look forward to the great things that we'll discuss.
Thanks, everyone. Did I miss any OPI staff? I think I caught everybody. So I just wanted to introduce the group to the staff that's supporting you in this work in particular. Our job here is to listen and to help collect information, but also, by way of introduction to the different programs that we all represent, I want you to know kind of a little bit about the breadth of services and the depth of experience that we have at the office. And as you have questions and want to reach out to any of these individuals, we just want to welcome you to do that and understand that this kind of represents all of the areas that we would like your thinking and your ideas about school and student wellness and academic achievement, the types of facilities and programs that run that whole gamut of how we do school in the state of Montana. And how we interact with that in our roles, either as a parent or as an educator or as a community member of whatever description. This is an opportunity for us to really listen and hear what your experience has been, and then turn that into the type of guidance that is really going to help our schools consider all of the issues that we wrestle with on a day-to-day basis together and from where we sit across the state. So let's see, Carly, give me the nod that we've kind of gone through and everyone has introduced themselves in the chat. And we'll have a chance to get a little bit more information about each other as we work in breakout sessions. But I think we will move into the purpose and overview slide if we can, Carly. All right. So as Dylan said in his comments, we want to, at the end of the day, be able to have conversations that inform and help to create guidance for schools that are focused on that academic program, the environment that school creates, and in particular, the emotional behavioral supports that students need. We want to think about flexibility. We want to think about opportunity that presents itself, and what is that guidance going to be that can help school leaders in particular make the best decisions about how we serve students in this midstream or post-COVID-19 world that we're living in. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So as I've mentioned, we have 3 topic areas that we're going to use to frame discussions today. And they are that academic programming, the physical and structural environment of school, social and emotional and behavior elements. These are 3 actually of 4 areas that are dealt with in an overarching plan that a statewide committee around school safety and creating guidance for the reopening of schools have treated. But for the purposes of this group, we really wanted to, for this first conversation and as a way for us to kind of get to know each other, to focus in on these 3 areas. So right now, what we'd like you to do is to respond to the link that Marissa has put into the chat to select which group you would like to join for our first breakout session. So you can click on that link, and for those of you who are on the phone, if you would like to, let's see, we did not think of this particular scenario for how.
Colette, could we just use the chat?
Yes, yeah. If
Okay.
if you're in the Zoom meeting itself and you're able to see the chat, you'll see the link that Marissa just put in. So if you click on that and respond to that survey, asks you to pick which group you would like to start with.
I just meant if we're on the phone, we could just use the chat because I'm on the phone.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
If you're using your phone for audio.
That's correct. Or if you physically dialed in and are not in the actual Zoom platform, I think everyone on here has my email, Dylan Clapmeyer, dylan.clapmeyer@mt.gov. If that's your last resort, go ahead and just send me an email with which group you want to be in, and I can tell Colette.
Dylan, this is Lori Enabo in Glasgow. I have no Wi-Fi, so I have no way of emailing right now. But I do want to be on the physical instructional environment if that's possible.
That works.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just take a few moments and I'll wait for the cue that we've got a majority of responses into our survey.
We're at 33, so we're looking for a couple more.
And OPI staff, you do not need to respond in that survey, just so you know.
So this is Ellen Livers, and I'm having real trouble with my Zoom, but I'd like to be on social, emotional, and behavioral.
Thank you. And definitely, if anyone else hasn't already responded to the survey, or if you're on the phone and just want to use your voice to let us know which group you're in, that's really helpful.
Chloe, I think we are good for now. If you want to continue, and if there's anyone who's still completing that form, go ahead or type into the chat.
Sounds good. So we're going to give Marissa a few minutes to get everyone assigned to breakout rooms. If you haven't enjoyed a Zoom meeting breakout room yet, this is going to be a treat for you. It's kind of a nice way to be able to have smaller group conversations that are still connected to the larger group and within this meeting. So yeah, go ahead.
This is Donnie. Mike Tatsy wants to get into the social and emotional. He's on his cell phone, so he texted me.
Okay, great. Thanks, Donnie.
Yep.
All right. Colette, are you ready for me to take the task force meeting norms?
Yes, please do.
Okay, so while Marissa is working on sorting everybody into breakout rooms, we wanted to set some norms for within your breakout group meetings. These norms are also included in your agenda, and then there will be time to discuss them with the OPI facilitator that is going to be in your breakout group. So, if it's what is best for kids, the answer is yes. So we're leading with kids in mind with all of this. We do want to request respectful discourse and being aware of airtime. While you will be in a smaller group, there still will be, anywhere between 10 to 20 members in there, and everybody wants a chance to have their voice be heard. Be present. That can be difficult, unfortunately, in an online environment. Sometimes we're tempted to check email and do other things, so we respectfully ask that your attention is on this situation at this moment, if possible. Speak from your own knowledge or place of understanding. Here in a moment, when you're in your breakout group, you're also going to address what hat you're going to be wearing throughout this session. So that is the place that you'll likely be speaking from. Don't leave any ideas unsaid because of fear of judgment. We don't have time to be shy. We need to be real. This is 8 hours of time, really 6 of them being dedicated to the work at hand. These 2 hours are kind of getting through some of the tech logistics and such, but it's a lot to grapple with in a short amount of time, and we are aware of that. We do ask, to please avoid gossip with colleagues who are not on the task force. If it's something that's frustrating or challenging, try to share that with fellow members or even with us, just simply because it will create a better work environment for everybody involved as well. Seek to understand knowledge from everyone. What everyone offers is valued and contributes to group success. So that pretty much speaks for itself. Assume best intentions. That can be difficult sometimes, but we're all here because we're invested in K-12 education, specifically Montana K-12 education. Otherwise, we wouldn't have these roles and we wouldn't have the wonderful volunteers as well. And then finally, enjoy the time together. It's an unpredictable time. It sets some great challenges for us. I think none of us would deny that. However, this is really a great time to put some of our best problem solving forward and think about how this is going to change the world of education from this point forward. So again, thank you for allowing me to share those norms. So the agenda of what is about to happen when we place people into breakout groups, you will have an OPI facilitator there with you, and the OPI person is really there to kind of help guide the conversation, keep track of questions that perhaps need to be addressed from a state agency perspective. So you'll be, once again, introducing yourself a little bit more thoroughly and likely with your voice, your name, your role, where you're zooming in from, what brought you to this committee, and what hat you're wearing, because as I've seen in the chat, we have many different hats. We'll have everybody review the breakout group norms and think if there's anything that needs to be added to those norms. There will also be discussion for different group roles. We have 4 that we think are probably necessary. However, your group may determine that there needs to be more. A digital note taker, that's someone who is generally Google Doc friendly. So if you're that person, be thinking if you might be able to fill that role. A timekeeper, a spokesperson. So when we come back full group, that spokesperson can do the summarizing. A taskmaster to keep people on task and anything other that you may determine to need. And then really this work will start in the next meeting, but you will start discussing the overarching questions, and you will, the person that is assigned the note taker will help to track the questions and answers and thoughts that the team has on a graphic organizer. You'll have a conversation about from where you stand, what is the topic that you want to see addressed in these conversations, almost the non-negotiables, the things that you think are absolutely mandatory. We have selected 3 broad categories to group you in. Your team may decide that there needs to be another category that we should be addressing, so you can have a brief conversation about that. Finally, this is a lot. I know it's 45 minutes, but it's a lot. Planning any kind of next steps that maybe you want to address next week on Thursday at 1 p.m. as well. And then the spokesperson that was identified from your group will share a 5-minute summary of what your team spoke about when we bring everybody back full group. Also, to set the expectation is that you will receive a warning on your computer that pops up when you're about to return to the main session. And the really cool thing is Colette will remain in the main session, and she can give us little or Marissa for that matter. Sorry, I didn't think that through, but we can give you little tips like we're about to end the session in this amount of time. So it's really, really awesome. And then it looks like we are, well, let's check in with Marissa. Marissa, how are we doing with the sorting everybody into breakout groups?
We're doing well. I have just a few folks that I'm taking from the chat to make sure they're in the right room. And our physical and structural room is getting a little bit big. So I think I'm going to take 1 more minute and break that into 2 groups, if that's okay. So we'll get started. I think I need about 1 minute.
Sounds good. So while we're continuing to set up those breakout rooms, just want to let you know a couple of things. Carly, I'm a little bit off script here, but when we're preparing for our next meeting, the role that Marissa and Carly and myself and Dylan will play is to gather and to put together all of the information from our discussions today. We're going to be sharing that information out, as well as the recording from these meetings, on the website that was linked in the message that we sent to the group last evening at the end of the day. So just know that that web page is going to be a place for you to go back to look at our progress, to look at our work, to be able to review the recordings of the sessions, and also to be able to share that information out. Each of you represents your own perspective. You have the hat on that you're bringing to this work. And so that means also that you might have a responsibility, or to get ideas from others who you interact with or have had conversations about. This is how things have been with school. Maybe let's think about how they could be. So you are that conduit to the groups and the communities that you represent, for sure. And I'm going to put a little pressure on our student, Haley Mosman, who's in the group, and just let her know that we would love to hear more students' voices. And I would welcome this whole group to really pay attention to what our student representative has to say. I know, and many of you are parents as well, who have been supervising or helping our own kids as they've been learning at home over the last couple of weeks. It's a huge challenge as a family to be able to support learning in the home. And I think the voices and just having the conversations with my two children about what their experience has been has really provoked my thinking. So again, I would welcome you all to think about those student voices, whether they're in your home or in homes nearby, and to really think from that student perspective as well. So we'll probably show you the that website if you didn't visit that already with the message that you got last night. But just know that that's your landing place to access all of the information about our meetings. And that's how we'll also be sharing out our work to those who are interested. Thank you, Carly. You're just so good. So this is what the page looks like.
We're ready to go to when you're ready, Colette.
Okay, sounds good. But yep, just so you know, with the two committees, the Flex Committee and the Learn Committee, this is going to be your go-to information site for the work in progress. Okay, so with that, making sure there aren't any questions in the chat that we need to address before we go into breakout. But Marissa, when you're ready, I think.
I'll open all rooms. You'll see something flash up on your screen. You'll hit join room and go ahead and start introducing yourself and working your way through the protocol that we created and conversations. And we'll see you back. It's now 1:30, so we'll see you back in 45 minutes. So we'll see you back around 2:15, 2:16. So go ahead and join. If you weren't assigned to a group, you'll be left in the main room and I'll get you into the right group. Connie, which group did you want to be in? I'm sorry if I missed it.
I just mentioned, I sent a text to Dylan, I'm sorry, just saying whichever one that, you know, to balance out the representatives, have one of us in each group.
Sure. I think I will have you join the academic if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, I'll send you right now.
Thank you.
Being on the phone, does that put me in a breakout room?
So that's Lori Innabo.
So it won't. So what we'll do is we'll have our last breakout group be here. So if you are on the phone, you'll be in this room and we'll get you put in.
Okay.
So I stay where I am too?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So let's see here. Just want to.
I know I signed up for the academic because I'm a teacher, but nothing's popped up on my screen yet.
Sorry, Tracy.
Thank you.
And then our MTAA person, where would you like to be?
Yeah, I signed up for SEL, or social, emotional, and behavioral. Ah, perfect. Thank you.
And then Kelly, where did you like to be? Or are you on the phone?
I am on the phone.
Okay, great. And then Greg? And then Camille, did I assign you to the right one? I think, oh, put you in academic by accident, sorry. You're going to go into physical instructional, there you go.
Yes.
And then I think as long as Greg is set up, I think we have our 3 on the phone, which will be great. We'll have our conversation here. And then Dylan, is there a specific group you can feel free to jump in and out of whatever groups you'd like?
Yeah, I don't really need to be anywhere specific. If there's a group without an OPI support, I'm happy to go to that one.
Okay, let me take a look. Why don't we have you go over to the physical and structural 2? So let me, I'll send you over there right now.
Thanks.
Kind of like.
And this is Mike Datsy.
Hi, Mike.
Am I in a group then, or I just stay on the phone in this room here?
Go ahead and just stay on the phone with this group, because Lori and Kelly and yourself, and then I believe Greg, I didn't hear his voice or see something in chat from Greg. So yeah, we're going to hang out here together, and I will, I'll kind of walk us through, and between Marissa and I will record, record the discussion that we're going to have for our group right here.
Okay.
So I'm just making a copy of our graphic organizer.
So this is Lori. So for the meeting, if the computer is up and working, will I still be in the physical and structural?
Yeah, if your computer comes up and you're able to jump into the Zoom meeting, we can definitely put you into that other meeting. Or the
Okay,
other.
but I'm looking. I've been trying ever since we started to get the computer up and rolling, but I'm not experiencing any success. But for the next meeting next Thursday, would that automatically put me into the structure and physical, or would we stay in this?
You know, you'll be able to have your preference, and we intend to actually move people around to different groups so that we get a variety of opportunities to engage with that idea as we move through the next 3 meetings.
That sounds great.
Yeah, because you know, a lot of these ideas do cross over, and environment affects academic delivery, affects, you know, the services and programs that support social and emotional or behavioral learning. So so what we're going to do is, and so thanks Kelly and Greg and Mike and Lori, we're going to use the same protocol that the breakout groups are using, and it's structured around the guiding questions that you may have had a chance to look at, and we're going to look at those guiding questions from 3 different perspectives. The first perspective where we'll start is here's what, you know, what responses do we have here and now to the guiding questions. There's then a so what, like, okay, so that this is what we know, or this is what we've experienced. Why is that important, or is it worthy of further consideration? And then the last kind of lens that we're looking through the guiding questions is now what? And out of the thoughts and ideas that you have in those first 2 areas, then we'll begin to surface some priority areas and focus some work around the guidance that could be created out of those really significant areas. So I'm gonna try to do this in a way that hopefully is helpful for you to be able to express, and I can record what you're saying. It's a little bit like flying blind because you can't see the structure that I'm using, but just rest assured my job is to try to capture what your thoughts are and what you're saying. And so maybe we'll just start with the first guiding question, and that is from each of you, and we'll go one by one. What are some of the biggest challenges that you see are facing education right now? So it's that first big challenge question, and this is the category of here's what we know, or here's what we think right now. So Kelly, do you want to start with you and just
Sure,
identify
absolutely.
big challenge?
Yes. I'm representing people across the state in all different areas. So lots of families that we work with, and then educators in, you know, the state. And what I've been hearing a lot of feedback on as we've gone through is just the overwhelming amount of work that's happening for all kids, because, and I think it's based on like assessment, that teachers are struggling to understand how, or to figure out and develop ways to assess without doing a lot of extra reading and writing, versus maybe doing multidisciplinary types of ways of exhibiting knowledge. And the other, so I think that's a key issue. And then the communication, which is actually a positive. I've actually done some polling, through Decoding Dyslexia and for Optimizing Abilities, has improved in lots of areas because people have been more communicative. And just like a phone call has really supported kids that are going into it. I'm sorry, am I talking too long, Coley?
No, you're good. I'm just
okay.
I'm typing.
Okay, great. So yeah, just that they're having, and that was something I want to talk to Dylan about, is just having communication lines. And I know we talked about that with Superintendent Artson too, was to make sure that the communication is something so people feel supported, even if things aren't working exactly like each party wants them to work. As long as we're communicating and being transparent about everyone's has the same end game, I think will be really valuable. And then my other concern was just the amount of kids that there's going to be, and whether there's going to be a teacher migration for retirement if they have to keep going remote, like, and how that would structurally look, as far as like maybe having to bring in trailers to separate people, to have smaller classrooms, aides, how that would kind of present. But that's enough for right now, if that's good.
No, that's great.
All right.
So I'm going to ask then, Mike, would you like to share what some of your biggest challenges are facing education?
Sure. I'm trying to get to my pickup here. I'm outside, so you don't hear all the wind.
Oh, no worries.
So some of the biggest challenges that we're facing is gets back to the communication side. Where we're at in our part of the country, we're kind of in the middle of nowhere, so the telecommunication stuff has been a real issue for us. And just having students that have faced a high rate of trauma, they really need that structure that the in-class, in-person school offers. And so without that structure at home, we haven't seen much success in getting a lot of work back from students. And so just being able to track that, find out what kind of issues our kids are having that's preventing them from getting that work turned back in has been a real challenge for us. And then on the teacher side, it was difficult for our teachers to be able to communicate with students because phone numbers change so often, and with our families, they might have a cell phone number that we have listed. Next month it might be a different cell phone number. So just that communication piece has been a real challenge for us, back and forth between students. So that's kind of was our biggest deal.
Thanks, Mike. Let's see, Greg or Lori?
This is Lori. I teach middle school in Glasgow, and there are several concerns. Of course, the social distancing part. How are we going to provide, the safety that is needed to protect the children? But we've, of course, chosen to keep the school closed at this time, and it's not the best learning environment for the children. And the thing that I have been really concerned about is the equity for the children. When we have them in the classroom, we can address some of those, but when they are not in the classroom, when they're at home, we don't know which students have parents at home helping, or if they have to begin the work, if the children are needing to take care of children. So with the equity, the fairness of this type of education is a huge concern. Communication, we're we're pretty good as far as the technology is concerned. We were fortunate enough to have Chromebooks check out to the students and to be able to communicate with them in that way, but it only works if they're willing to be communicated with. And so those are some of the concerns that I as a teacher have.
Thank you, Lori. And let's see, I see B Rock above. Would you like to go ahead and share what's your biggest concern about, or what are the biggest challenges facing education right now from your perspective? I can unmute you. Let's see. Are you able to hear us? You can also, if for some reason we're not able to hear you, oh, audio problem. Okay, sorry, I just saw the bottom of the chat there. If you want to go ahead and just put what your thoughts are about the greatest challenges in the chat box, I'll pull those across into the graphic organizer I have going. So so you were part of the social group, and did you get bumped out? Okay. All right. So yeah, if you want to just put your thoughts in the chat, I'll pull those across and put those into the organizer here. So I'm going to go to the next question. You know, that first one is about challenges, and we'll just kind of go round robin again. So what are some of the greatest opportunities for education right now from your perspective?
This is Lori Annabo. I feel that with the teaching that I'm doing and the learning that is taking place, this allows me to differentiate more in meeting the needs of the students where they are, based on what I was talking about with that equity side of things, with the students who have the support. We can differentiate for them to get the desire to learn and to keep them moving in the right direction, and we can adjust things to fit the needs of the students. I think we're learning a lot more about our students as individuals this way.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Kelly.
Yeah.
And I would completely agree with Lori on that aspect too, of it's a lens into the homes and it's a lens into the schools. So like parents are learning about what's happening at school for their children and what isn't happening, and that vice versa. So at, you know, the school's thinking, well, I'm giving them this amount of homework or this kind of information, and they don't know that they don't have access to being able to do it, or they have a lot of other pressures at home. So that has been, I think, a plus as far as like what, Lori?
I didn't say anything.
Oh, I thought someone said something. Yeah, just that I think the same equity piece I had talked about that too, is that people really need to, I mean, it's giving us an opportunity to be able to know students and families, because it's a family that supports them. And, you know, talking some to our school district of saying that, you know, a school represents, I think you said this, Colette, was, you know, it's not just academics or it's not just social, but it's all of that. Like it's a home for some people, it's safety for people, it's food for some people. It's, you know, school has been transformational. It's something that's a lot bigger. And so this COVID has really helped everyone to see the importance of the education of the whole person in a way that is like really magical and overwhelming, but it's just, it provides so much. So I think, I don't know if I'm articulating that, but I really have just seen incredible transformations in a positive side, and then people struggling, but then making it through to transformation. So I think there's a way, if we look at it, of building team collaboration, like really building communication channels, and just it's more humanity, like people that, anyway, that's enough talking, but that piece of it, I think, it's kind of beautiful, and this is a way into it, and it's great. I'm excited.
Yeah. Yes, I'm excited to hear the things that you're saying. It really shows that kind of common experience that we're all having right now, and what are we going to do about it, right? And that's what these conversations are all about. Mike, how about you? What do you see as the biggest opportunity that we have right now?
Well, I agree with what both the ladies said about those opportunities of being able to really show what the school is all about, and how much involvement we really have in really students' daily lives. I mean, it's important that we both understand that from the school side and the family side. But one of the things that I really see at our school, in the opportunity that I've really picked up on, is that it's really given our teachers, our staff, the opportunity to make their lessons relevant to our community, to our culture, and it shows how important that those lessons being how important it is for them to be relevant, and we can go a lot further with that. So, for example, I talked to one family, a couple students I called to check on them, and we talked about some of the things that they were doing, and one was figuring out how much hay they were feeding each day to cattle, and I said, well, that's math, talk to your math teacher and talk about that stuff, and you can get a grade for things like that. And so, that those kind of things are relevant, and kids learn so much more when we can do it that way. And so I think it was a real opportunity for our teachers to understand that and to see how far that can go.
That's really exciting.
I would agree with that, because this has allowed us to see more opportunities and different opportunities. And an example I would have is I teach Montana history, and we were on the open range, and one of my students happened to be lambing and calving, and so we brought it into the Google Classroom.
I would agree 100% too, and that was one of the first priorities I put down, was just different ways of exhibiting knowledge and assessing kids, because it helps them, first of all, stay in school because they're engaged and they think it is relevant, to use Mike's word, which is so important. And a way that we could use that, if we had to do a hybrid, as far as school and home, is that maybe we could figure out ways to do more independent studies that would be giving credit, like they're doing at a higher level. So I love that.
Yes, and I think that's really important. I mean, if the independent study, if they can design their own kind of coursework, and I think we could go a lot further with our kids being engaged, and then again, it makes it a whole lot easier to assess too, because when you're doing a lesson and you're trying to assess your kids on how they've done with the assignment, it's really hard, because some families have two parents that are helping them sit down and get the work done, and another student might not have anybody. So it's and they might do very poor on the lesson, but it's not really their fault. Maybe they didn't have that support that the kid with two parents did. So it'll even that field out a little bit, I think.
Yes, I agree, Mike.
I think so too. So there's a couple, there are a bunch more questions. And so I think some of what you said relate to some of these areas. So I might try to just take notes across the different questions that I have. So from your perspective with those opportunities and challenges, specifically what supports do students need? But we'll also touch on parents, teachers, and school administrators. But the first one is, what supports do students need to capitalize on those opportunities?
Well, I think, this is Kelly, I just think that, and I might talk again because I kind of work in that way, because I am one of the neurodiverse people that I work with, which Coley knows a little bit from our meetings. But I think what is very useful to parents and children is the transparency of kind of having the end game. You know, how in a college setting where you have a syllabus, you have a better idea of what's coming. And I think that helps people prepare for if they have to go to work, if somebody has to babysit at home because of a grandparent being sick or whatever is happening specifically with COVID. But for them to have the information further out instead of like the next day, and so they can have a better way of planning for what's going on. Anyway, that's a thought I have. I think is important. And we also I did another survey during this time about people calling, like a teacher calling to the home instead of emailing, especially for kids and parents that don't have access to the phone. And like Mike said, it depends on if they're going to call you back or they're going to answer their phone. But it made a really huge impact even in our family. I have a senior in high school, and the teacher finally just said, I'm going to take the time because I'm going back and forth with emails. It's costing me so much time. I'm not really connecting with anybody. And so he just assigned a day that he was going to call everyone. And it wasn't a long call, but that personal contact, my son was like flying. Like he was happy. He felt supported. Because Zoom is great, but you don't feel the same as the voice and the connection. And so I did a survey of that on our Decoding Dyslexia page, and everybody, it was like, 99% said that would be super valuable. And some people had teachers call and other ones hadn't, but the ones that did, it was all very well received. So very quick calls, but just to be able to touch base.
That's awesome. So I'm going to not say Nasaya's first name correctly, but I'll see if I can get a hold of Marissa to put you into the breakout room with Donnie. But yeah, Mike or Lori, from your perspective, what supports do students need?
I will agree with what was stated, and that one-on-one person, the personal communication with them is huge. To be able to, it's nice to be able to meet their needs in a classroom type situation, but they do need that one-on-one. As the year is drawing to the end, I'm finding I'm having more one-on-one Google Meets with students, and it's more effective in letting them know that they have my support.
I agree. I think you guys kind of covered that. That's really what our kids needed, and I can see that amongst other kids on, especially in reservation settings, because that's where I'm coming from. I made several phone calls as a superintendent just to families to see if to visit with kids to see how they were doing, to make sure that they had everything they needed. Just things like that, really, really did make their day. And I really encourage staff members to do that, just to pick, 5 or 6 kids each day and just try to make that contact. And if you didn't get them, try again in the afternoon, and just to see if they had everything that they needed. And then we had several students reach out to us and say, hey, I'm in need of a place to study where it's quiet. I want to do the work, but I need somewhere where it's quiet and I can get the work done because, little brother or sister is, disruptive, or, I can't concentrate. So having a place for them to go, maybe if we're looking at this fall, we're considering renting a couple buildings off campus if we're not able to go to school, where we'll have like 10 cubicles that, you know, kids can go in and have computers set up, and have that kind of support to be able to just go to a quiet place and study, almost like a library, you know.
Well, Mike, on that idea too, if those were open, I had that idea of, I mean, we did, different people, idea of either like renting trailers to go onto sites, you know, like a trailer or an RV. And then also, like you're saying, using some of these places that maybe not even having a high rental, but like a library or a church, that they're not being used. So we can just like collaborate more as a community. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I love that. Let's see here. So, so specifically, what more supports, and you have touched on this a little bit, but what do parents need from your perspective? We can all put that hat on for a moment, probably too.
Well, I think that something that parents need is understanding from teachers, and they too need the professional development that some teachers need to receive instruction that is going to be beneficial to their children. And, you know, if they're going to support their children, some of our children are living with elderly grandparents who the computer is as foreign to them as antiques. They're familiar with the old fashioned, and they don't understand what these kids have access to because they don't use it on a day-to-day basis. And so I don't know how we can do the professional development for our communities for those who want to be able to support their children and children. But then we also have educators that are in the same place. So professional development is more, it's geared toward everyone. These are wonderful.
Well, and maybe
tools
sorry, Lori, I was just thinking on your idea of that, of maybe that we could almost do like co-ops, or we would have some parents, because we could meet in small groups, so there could be some parents that were more savvy with that, and then it would build little communities for kids too, because what we're losing in face-to-face is the community, which is devastating for our children as far as mental health and everything. That maybe, like when you're saying, is that there's someone, a grandparent couldn't do that, but we could have more like almost like a co-op, like a collaboration of a 5 group of people that could work together to help each other. And it also split the burden of people being at home and not being able to be at work.
Right.
You know, and from what I see, parents really need to visit with them about, try to take some of that stress level away somehow, because I think that they're carrying a lot, you know. Some of them are worried about jobs, whether or not they're going to continue to work, and worried about, you know, grandparents or parents that they haven't been able to see, and whether they have food or whatever. All of those things parents are stressing about, and then they also have to be the teacher. So we somehow have to give them support to know that it's okay that, you know, that their kids didn't get homework done today. You know, maybe we can try again tomorrow. That kind of emotional support, so I think, is important for our parents to have as well.
I agree, Mike. I think that's a huge piece of it. And I coach parents one-on-one in like different families across the state. And that was one of the big things that I just was saying, you know, just take a breath. The teachers have been thrown into this as well. They don't know what's happening. And, you know, so they're sending home a packet because they're trying to meet their regulations and their mandates, but it'll all sort out. And just to say that, oh, your child is not necessarily, you know, we can say they're losing ground, but they maybe are not losing ground, even by doing the hay example that you had, or by they're learning different types of social skills too, and emotional skills through crisis, that this something is going to help them their whole lives, you know. And really, for having that piece of the parents understanding, because I've been getting hysterical calls from so many families, and it has calmed down quite a bit just by saying, it's okay, your child's not going to fail, this has been 2.5 months, like putting it in perspective for them to understand they've had this foundation set, but just being human and talking back and forth really helps them calm. And I think that is something that's huge that we need to do for them.
Well, and I think that those parents have learned from their children as far as the things that their children are doing, and that has helped them to understand. They were in a panic because they saw all of this, and the more kids they had, the more teachers they had, the more they were panicked. And given the time, I think that they've learned this is, it's eating the elephant one bite at a time. And they've learned that it is something that's doable. It's different, but we can still achieve this goal.
I'm frantically typing. Hopefully my clicking is not getting too distracting to you. This is just great conversation. I used to, back in the day, I used to help a court reporter. So I think I've got the typing skills, but I just, like I said, hopefully it's not too clicky. So I think, there's a bunch more questions, and we have about 10 minutes left in our time. And I think we'll get to some of these questions as we go into the next sessions. But we really want to also think about what supports do teachers need, and you've talked about professional development, certainly. So what are some other ideas about what supports teachers need? And I think we'll probably wrap up with what supports do school administrators need.
Well, this is Kelly. I'll just be really quick because I'm not a teacher, but I do talk to various people, is that I think that they need to know too that their job isn't on the line. Like, I think that they need to feel more comfortable that when they make kind of discerning decisions to fit into matrices and testing, that they're trusted at that level. Not that people aren't saying that, but I mean that, or they aren't doing that, but just for them, because they, like the teachers that have called us or talked to us, same thing. Like they're saying, I have a 13-year-old, they had 62 emails in the beginning of the week and they don't even know how to do emails, and so just again, back to that humanity piece where everybody is working together, and there's going to be what you said earlier, Cole, was like flexibility amongst everyone, that we're all just doing our best, and it's not going to be exactly the same standards as it was. So that kind of, it, not in the way of diluting, things, but it's just different. And so I think that would really support them also, is to feel like, it's what you do and you're doing your best, and we know you're doing your best.
And as far as coming from a teacher perspective, when we started this with the crisis, it was panic mode because no one knew what we should be doing. And so we created that path as we went, and we had to change some things. And that was overwhelming for the teachers, it was overwhelming for the parents, it was confusing, but going forward, I think that we've developed some patterns, if you will, that we can continue on should we need, and build on those skills that we've learned.
And I guess from my perspective, teachers need to be able to have know that it's okay that they're not getting as far as they should be, or they think they should be, because they're used to, in the classroom, they're used to, at the end of the week, this is where we're at. Right now they don't know if their top student is doing good work or if they should be trying to catch somebody up, and so they just need support to know that it's okay to slow down, and know that they're not gonna be as far as they think they should be. And then as far as delivery of instruction, they really need some support as far as knowing that delivery is different now, and knowing what good delivery is with technology, and how to best utilize it, and how to best assess how kids are doing. That's kind of what I see.
And too, Mike, do you, I mean, you alluded to it earlier, just the trauma piece, that the teachers are people, you know, they're not robots.
Yeah.
They're having trauma,
Yep.
and they're, you know, there's like zoning out. They think they're going to get more done. I think everyone's felt this wave of almost like roller coasters up and down emotionally. Like at times everyone's been productive, and then other times for no reason, but it is a reason because it's trauma. But you feel like, okay, I'm not getting things done. And so then there's a panic that sets in again. And I think that, again, just embracing and helping them on a social emotional basis for teachers to say, you're human, you're having trauma like everyone else. You don't have to perform like a robot.
And that
Right.
some of these teachers are parents, administrators. I mean,
Yeah.
they're working their jobs. It's
right.
They're doing their jobs, and some teachers have additional jobs besides their teaching job, and so it's really it's been challenging, and it's been challenging for me, and I'm an older teacher who doesn't have anyone at home, and I see the challenges. I can't imagine what it must be like for somebody who is wearing all different hats trying to make things work, especially if they have multiple children, their own children.
Yeah, and me coming from a perspective of neurodiversity, that's even another layer. So kids that are having other types of learning that, you know, they can, whatever that situation is, it's just, you know, tenfold what the parents are dealing with.
And Marissa, correct me if I'm wrong, we've got about 4 or 5 minutes before we come back together as the big group. Okay, so we're gonna, I think, wrap up with a conversation of what supports do school administrators need? So what are your thoughts on that question?
Well, I'm a superintendent, and I think I might need a padded room here. So if anybody has any mobile padded room, send them my way.
Okay, would you like me to put that in the notes?
Yeah.
That's honest. That's good.
Well, and they need the support from everyone involved, including the community. You know, whether the community, as the people in the community have children who are involved or not, they need the support. I guess I think back to how some of the companies have stepped up to support us as a school, and that fell on our superintendent. And if you don't have that support, the success is limited. And I think about our local internet service, who went out and got all of our unconnected homes connected.
Wow. I think too, it's just so, that's pretty cool that they did that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you were saying something
You know,
before, Linda, now I lost my train of thought. Oh, for the administrators, is what we did as a group, as an organization, is we did, which I think is pretty cool for the kids, like to do writing skills and letter things, is that we had people write to the superintendents and the principals of their school just to say thank you. And it was another skill building for them, you know, for writing, that it really, I think, was very well received for administrators and teachers and the like.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, is it Bianca?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I had to switch my computer, and it seems like I missed out on everything. And I'm like, oh, what did I miss? What did I miss? But, you know, one of the things for administrators, I really enjoy the Zoom meetings each Wednesday with all administrators in Montana. I think that's a great support system. And as for the parents and the students, I mean, you know, we're not alone in this, and it's nice to see everyone stepping up and helping each other out when it comes to with everything, I guess. You know, in my community, I know we're all trying to be supportive of each other, and that we're going to get through this together. So, but again, I'm sorry I missed out on most of it.
No, Hey, Bianca, and so we're just kind of going through the guiding questions that were shared in the email and on the website, and we're going to come back to these again and again. So definitely you'll have a chance to jump in a little bit more on the other parts of this.
Okay.
I think we haven't gotten our 30-second or 1-minute warning yet. But just so you know, some of the other questions, if we're able to put something in chat or speak up here, if I can talk quickly. And we're also going to be looking at alternative ways that education services can be delivered. We're really interested to know your thinking about nutrition services. And that social emotional support that you've actually been talking about quite a bit. What are the health and safety needs of schools that should be addressed? Technology needs. I'm glad you mentioned the internet service providers. There were a ton of communities where that happened, but that didn't happen in every community. And so we still have big gaps in access to internet services that can actually make technology delivered education possible. And the other committee, the Flex Committee, is dealing more with policies and that, but from your perspectives too, what are the things that state officials can do to support local communities, whether that is from a policy perspective or how the use of stimulus, the CARES Act funds and that sort of thing. We're going to talk more about those things. And then the last question that we had on the list was, how do we fill gaps between this year and next year? So you've talked about kind of the high demand in time, that trying to assess and know where kids are, relative to content and grade level, and that's been a big challenge. So we want to get your good thinking around how do we fill those gaps or even identify those gaps for kids who are not going to be necessarily at that grade level when we start up again in the fall too. So lots of questions, and again, those guiding questions are on the web page that we have. So we can think some more about that and then talk some more too. Oh wow, the gang is getting back together, isn't it? We're gonna see everybody start filtering in back into the big room. Awesome. Wowee. So thank you everyone for the hard work and the great discussions that I know that you had, the small group that I worked with. We got some great ideas and got kind of partway through talking through our guiding questions, and that, here's what we're thinking, here's what we know right now part. And so thank you for kind of jumping into that structure with the breakout rooms and kind of helping us orient ourselves to how we want to have these discussions through those structures. So at this point, I just want to check in with Marissa and Carly to find out from them what you would like me to do next.
I think next on our agenda, our group was definitely nowhere near. We could talk probably for days at this point, but I think it'd be important to share a little bit about what you talked about. So either your spokesperson or your note taker. I know we didn't give too much time for our spokesperson to prepare. Just share out a few highlights from your group or some conversations that kind of stuck in your mind, and just let us know what each group was talking about, because we are all joining here with different hats. So I'd love to hear from those different groups, and doesn't have to be that long, maybe max 5 minutes, and just to kind of hear what other groups were talking about. So our first group was Academic 1. So that was Alyssa, Ann, Carly, Gary, and so. So if there's someone from that group.
Paige is our spokesperson. And hopefully she doesn't have a student checking in right now, because she's also doing that. Let's see. Could we skip for a moment to give Paige a moment to get back?
Of course.
Thank you.
So let's move on to academic 2, which was the group that I was in with Brooke, Chad, Dana, Dylan, etc.
So my name's Thomas Beatty, and I'm a high school choir teacher in Helena. And I volunteered to be a spokesperson. Some of the biggest challenges we talked about facing education were definitely, it had a lot to do with equality and equal access to resources. We talked a lot about the technology piece, how Wi-Fi across the state and just technological resources across the state are not equal. And no matter what environment we continue in, there's likely to be some kind of a technological component. So that's a big challenge, is just making sure every student has that kind of equality to technology so that they can do the best learning that they can. We talked about vulnerable students. Student vulnerability looks different for different students. As for some of them, it's they're not doing well on their schoolwork because they can't learn very well in this environment. For some, it's they don't have access to food. They're in abusive homes, things like that. Some students are homeless, and school is kind of the thing keeping them afloat. So if they don't return to the structure, a structured school building environment, then they don't really have a place to be. So we talked a little bit about that stuff. What are some of the greatest opportunities? We discussed this is a good opportunity to make curriculum more intentional, streamline some things, and really focus on the importance of delivering competent lessons, student-driven content. We also talked about how this particular environment has been really conducive to the sharing of ideas. Lots of different people have, I guess the word or the phrase we used was open door. Everyone's door is open. Everyone is willing to share what they're doing and looking for ideas from other places. And so that's a huge thing that it would be bad to lose. So hopefully we can continue that into the future. The supports that students need, we talked about definitely time management, training. They just need help with technology, which is kind of strange because the technology generation and stuff, but for a lot of them, it's not working. As well as also this goes into what parents need. Parents also need help learning how to manage their students and monitor them. Students need help being monitored and learning how to manage their own time. Crystal clear expectations for how to complete their work and what to do. There was a really great thing that was said about Maslow before Bloom. So for a lot of students, it's not necessarily Bloom's taxonomy where we're talking about the best kinds of questions to ask to inspire learning, but more like we need to make sure that kids are clothed and fed first before they can begin learning well.
Thomas, I'm going to ask you to do 30 more seconds and then we'll move on to our next group. Thank you.
Perfect. That's just what I needed. Supports. What supports do teachers need? We talked a little bit about we need good decisions from our leadership to make sure that we have the reassurance that students come first. We also need access to plenty of resources and training. We know that it's all going to look different and we're ready to get our hands dirty and do it. But we need that training. We need help figuring out exactly how that's going to look and what to do. So I'll end there. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Thomas. Is our academic group 1 ready to share?
So I don't know that Paige has returned. However, Alyssa volunteered. So Alyssa, take it away.
Okay, I was the note taker, so I volunteered to step in. She is checking kids in and out. We wear so many hats. Real quick, we have a great group of 9 people, a curriculum director, 4th grade teacher, middle school teachers, art teacher, high school, biology, a tech coordinator, someone who works with our EL students across the state, which is such a great voice to have, and a first-year teacher, which is so exciting to me. We actually started off with some non-negotiables after our introduction and our thoughts, just some things that we feel like we are going to stand on that hill, whether we're there by ourselves or with everybody else, that I wanted to share. Digital equity was probably the #1 thing. A lot of what I'm going to say, Thomas already shared. Thomas, our thoughts were very similar to your group. We need to be sure we're watching for those gaps, not only the equity that happens by chance, inequity that happens by chance, but what are the learning modalities that our kids are best going to learn in? Some of our really strong students are actually not doing as good of a job in this type of format. And so when the switch is flipped in your classroom, what would you have done? We talked about the fact that the digital platforms for student communication, we were emergency teaching. So we're using so many, and we really need to work on streamlining that, along with accountability for both the teachers and the students. Non-negotiable was that our state standards are our curriculum. And so while we may not know how we're going to teach, it should not be, there should be no confusion about what it is that we're teaching. Do no harm was a big statement for our English language learners. That was something that we talked about: preparation, communication, and consistency. Moving forward, we can come up with preventative plans for teaching versus emergency teaching, and making sure we are giving choice as much as possible to accommodate individual needs. And then just some desired areas of focus, not necessarily a hill we're going to stand on, but some things we'd really like to be sure we talk about. Professional development, holy cow, how huge is that going to be around this time? I probably get 40 or 50 emails a day about, I need training on this, I need more support with this. So how can we do that? In order to create sound instructional design, online pedagogy was something that was an area of focus. One of our group members said she's been doing some research on acceleration versus remediation. And if you have a chance to listen to her thoughts, that was really great. And then motivation. How are we going to motivate our students? Some of them might need to sit in the park with you 6 feet away versus in front of a computer screen. So keeping our students and our teachers motivated to keep moving forward.
Thank you, Alyssa, for summarizing that so nicely for us. Our next group here is the physical instructional group. That was Ben, Camille, JR, Linda, McCall, Molly, Sandra, Susan, and Ty.
Yes, I'm gonna speak on behalf of that group. We had a wonderful cross-section of individuals across our state, anything from somebody from the governor's office to a nurse to educators as well as administrators. We had a great discussion about the biggest challenges we face. Some of that was regarding transportation and travel, as well as MHSA and activities and what that's possibly going to look like and how we can get our students to school safely and back home. Another one was, of course, need for professional development, which is a common theme we continue to hear. We've realized through some of this that not everybody is comfortable teaching specific platforms, and our students have not been exposed to those platforms as well. Elective classes was another one that we talked about. We have some large class sizes in music and our fine arts department, as well as how do we sanitize a shop classroom every day. So some challenges with that, as well as the equities of devices. Some of us have one-to-one and some of us aren't even close to that. So how do we continue remote learning and what can that look like? We also, discussed minimizing the impact of the virus and how do we do that appropriately and safely. Another one is, I'm in a building of 500 students and we transition 6 times, 7 times a day, hundreds of kids all at the same time. And how can we safely transition our students and ourselves? And is it reasonable to say that students need to stay in a classroom for 8 hours and just the teachers rotate? And how do they eat lunch? Do they not go outside? And is that something that we can reasonably say that we can do? On the flip side of that, though, is there's been some great opportunities for us, and that is learning, remote learning. We've all learned how to access these different platforms successfully, and the professional development, again, that we still need with that. We've also talked quite a bit about everyone is different and how to fine tune according to their region, allow some local flexibility. And those students who are sick, this allows them the opportunity to join their classrooms again through remote learning. So there has been some great opportunities throughout this as well.
Thank you, Sandra. Great to see you as well. And thank you for sharing for your group. Our next group is our, let's do our physical and instructional group. Second one, which is Christy, Dylan, Jennifer, Lori, Patrice, Rep Susan, and Robert.
And so we worked with Dylan from OPI, and then we have Lori from Columbus, Sue from Lockwood, Christy from Wyola, Patrice from Hardin, and we started off by the food safety program. The serving lunch program was kind of started our topic off, and just how we get all those kids served in an appropriate amount of time, and the different models for different sizes of schools. And we're represented by some big schools and some littler schools, and you know, Class B size schools too. And so it took up a lot of our conversation on how to do that. The delivery system of how we're doing it now, and the pickup system, different equipment that we might need for that. Personnel needs, the staffing needs, started a different path that I'll mention here in a minute. Scheduling issues we talked about as well. And then beginning times, maybe start times could look a little different to help with that. And then we come back to the contract, the teacher's contract, maybe of teachers don't eat with their kids during the day, and how that works with the union, and how that works with the contractual agreements that different districts have with their teaching staff, or if we needed MOUs, and we felt that maybe that needed to start with more leadership with the union on how it's going to trickle down to that, and more flexibility of that they're going to have to show possibly. And then we thought, well, we maybe needed to open this up maybe to talk maybe what recess would look like, and what the CTE programs would look like. And then it went on, maybe that could be done in the evening, but then we go back to the contractual agreement that the teachers have. So there was a lot of topic for discussion there. We talked about special education and how those kids would be served in that population, how bus transportation is going to look like with lack of bus drivers in the state, with the distance that some of these kids have to travel, what bathrooms would look like, and how we clean those. The hands-on learning was a big thing, and that social distancing, you know, is all a combination of everything, and how that looks. So that took up our conversation. We talked about different start times, and integrating with the community. Maybe after these meetings that we have as a group, maybe we need to go to our community to get feedback to bring back to these groups, is what we talked about as well. And a flexible schedule. And we also talked about, we're not going to make everyone happy all the time. And that's a real elephant sometimes in the room, to make people happy, and just communicating our thoughts. Proficiency based versus aggregated hours, and just getting that buy-in from the community. And so how we need to advertise that and communicate with our communities. So that's kind of our nutshell there for our group.
Thank you, Jennifer, for sharing all of that. Our next and last group is our social emotional group. Thank you for sharing. And that was Dick, Dawn, Ellen, Haley, Holly, Kim, Megan, Bethany, Sarah, Cheryl, and Reg.
Thank you. It was a very, very caring group of educators and students. A little talk about the start from the student perspective and students missing the structure in a day and finding it a struggle to recreate that on their own. Students really missing the social pieces of school, dances, sports, and those types of things. And just the social part of school in general. And then a couple folks talked about, some of the work kind of feeling like busy work, and it wasn't really that engaging with students. And as time has wore on, it's been difficult for students to maintain, a healthy relationship with their schoolwork because it hasn't really engaged them. The social needs of the new dynamic that is parents and children at home together, and parents are working and students are working, and that has created some dis-ease within households and relationships with parents and students, where parents have taken on that new role of kind of being the driver of helping kids with that schedule or getting their work done. And there was another really good point brought up about, how long can we really expect students to maintain a high level of engagement in this work in the online remote environment? I noticed that my own children at my house are really starting to hit a wall, and I would say their teachers have done a really nice job with the engagement level of the work that they're doing, but it's been a long time, within the same walls doing that work, and they're starting to struggle. Then, we talked about the home being that safe place, and the school was more of a professional environment. And so, we see the parents struggling with kids throwing fits because it's a safe space to do that, as opposed to where they'd kind of, get a stiff upper lip at school sometimes and kind of do things that sounded difficult right away. And the screen time is a real challenge. Kids are now spending so much more time on their screens. The adults are spending so much more time on their screens. And so, what are some realistic guidelines around, what is appropriate in helping folks deal with that? There's a lot of talk in our group about the equity and, digital equity in some communities, and then just equity of some schools are one-to-one, some schools are not. Some schools were able to help with hotspots, some were definitely not. And so, the equity made it a struggle because then the kids don't feel that engaged at all. There's been a lot of an uptick in the abuse in homes, but there's also been a downtick in the reporting of that abuse. And so, and there was some talk around being sensitive in that nature to, when it's reported out there, we don't want parents to feel like they can't send their kids back to school because they're going to get reported for abuse if they send their kid back to school. So that's a complicated dynamic, and we're seeing that and feeling that with some people getting those reports. It's difficult for kids in online therapy sessions and telemedicine to have the privacy they need to actually have meaningful sessions, and kids, examples of kids, private chatting a therapist during the online session because parents are sitting over the top of them and they don't feel like they can say things. So it's been a struggle. Shodair is now on a waiting list, was one of the things that came up. So they're starting to see more of those behaviors. There was talk in the rural areas about suicidal ideations, completions, just the lack of those mental health supports that are typically there in the brick and mortar environment, that can now be much more hit and miss. And we've just, as we've lost those kids out of the buildings, we've lost those holistic supports that really help those kids, you know, continue to work throughout the day. So I hope I did it justice. We had a really wonderful group of folks who deeply, deeply care about kids and their overall health, mental wellness, emotional wellness. And so I'm excited to do some good work with that group.
Thank you, Reg. And I forgot, I am so sorry, Cole's group, our group that were on the phone and in our home base, please go ahead and share.
Sure, and I was a very bad facilitator, and I did not, we did not establish who a spokesperson was. So Kelly, Mike, Bianca, and Lori, with your permission, I'll just say that, you know, we touched on a lot of the themes that you have, and equity, balance, engagement, the persistence, and the real opportunity for better communication was a theme that kind of ran through our discussions. One of the things that I think really stood out was, you know, how do we all work together to have the best possible outcome? And in many cases, we're seeing increased levels of meaningful communication between students and teachers and parents. And we need to continue to pay attention to the importance of that one-on-one or that personal communication between all of the people who support kids in learning. And let's see, Kelly or Mike or Lori, if like, I don't want to add to or add too much, because I think we've heard a lot of the same echoing themes, but if there's something that you wanted to call out that hasn't been from your recollection, please feel free to do that.
I would just say, again, the way that we assess children, you know, the communication was huge, but then also the assessment of them, and the communication as far as like the parents knowing what's expected and the teachers knowing what's expected, you know, on the administrative side too.
Yeah, that was huge, that transparency of expectation for everyone in this picture is critically important to having successful delivery of education services. So thank you. I'll turn it back to Marissa and Carly.
Great, thank you. And I have just put into the chat, please make sure that your note takers have shared your meeting notes from this time with either the person, the OPI, one of the OPI people who are in your room, or I put my email on the chat if you've not done so already. We can continue to use those documents as our running note-taking system, so feel free to hold on to that and share it out with your group as well. Carly has just posted on our screen here, we wanted to remind folks about our next meetings. We hope to and I plan to continue in our working in our small groups next week, kind of thinking about what is a product or something that we would like to be able to give the Montana community in support for moving forward in our groups, and sharing ideas and resources when we're thinking about the fall. So the dates are posted there. You'll be receiving an email with the Zoom link. Please, if you have any concerns or issues, feel free to contact Colette or Dylan, and they will make sure that you get that Zoom link. And for those who are calling in, this is always an option. We can definitely do a call in, but if you're able to join by computer, that'd be great. We did want to thank you all for taking this time out of your day and for joining this task force that came together quickly, and we're so thankful for your commitment to education here in Montana and to our students, and thinking about what is our fall going to look like. Colette, was there something that you'd like to add?
Yeah, just a couple of things. You know, today was the opening of our conversations, and so We're going to send you, as Marissa said, an email with the details for our next meeting. And we're going to also ask you to give us some feedback on how this went today so that we can improve our processes and make sure that things can go as smoothly and in as focused a way as possible. So you'll find that our team is very data driven, and so we will ask you for that honest feedback. It'll be just a couple of quick questions and that, but we do always want to improve on how we conduct these meetings and make sure that all of the voices who are included and representative of the state of Montana in this group are able to have their voices and opinions heard. And I think too, again, like Marissa said, don't hesitate to reach out, individually to Dylan or myself if you have thoughts or ideas, but do expect an email, kind of a fancier looking email by Monday. I think that's what we have for our timeline, to give us that feedback, and then you'll have the details for our upcoming sessions.
And so at this point, we thank you all for committing your time today. And if you are an educator or anyone who would like renewal units, please just stay on. Everyone can sign off if you don't want renewal units, and we will see you again next Thursday. If you'd like renewal units, please just stay on for 1 minute, and we just will explain how that process will go and to make sure that we get all of your contact information. So thank you all.
Thanks for spending the afternoon with us.
We'll give people just a moment to click off those individuals that are not interested in renewal units.
Wow.
If I'm on phone, interested in the renewal unit, do I need to do something differently?
So I will explain that literally in like 2 seconds. I'm just waiting really quickly. I know it's hard because you're on the phone, so you're wondering what everybody else is doing. Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Okay, I think
Marissa, Calais, I'm going to go ahead and hop off, but thank you so much for facilitating that. I really appreciate it. Went great.
No problem, Dylan, anytime.
Okay, so we had all kinds of ideas on how to track for renewal units, and then the simplest one prevailed. So what I would like you to do is, if you are interested in earning renewal units, here in a moment, I'm going to have you put your name in the chat. Although I do know, Lori, you are interested, and I'm taking note of that, even though you were not able to chat. What will happen is I will check your attendance at the beginning of the next session, and then I will also just verify that you're still in attendance at the end of the next session. And I'll do that from now to the end of our sessions. And so if you're able to be here for all 4 sessions for the total 8 hours, you'll earn 8 renewal units. If for some strange reason, like maybe you have to leave a session an hour early or something to that effect, if you will send me an email, perfect, Marissa, it's like she read my mind. If you would just simply send me an email and say, hey, my renewal units are going to be cut short, then I can make sure that your certificate does not say 8, because we just simply have to be able to confirm the amount of time that you were here in attendance with us. So people are already taking the cue. Yes, please go ahead and sign into the chat that you would like renewal units, and I will make sure to put your name on a list for my tracking. And Lori, I am putting your name in there right now as well.
Once you've done that,
oh,
sorry, Lori.
It's fine.
Once you put your name in the chat, feel free to jump off. Sorry.
Yes. Yes, you may go ahead and jump off once you've signed the chat.
Okay, so this is Lori, so I'm going to go.
Okay. Thank you,
Thanks
Lori.
so much, Lori.
And thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, OPI team over there.
Thanks, Susan.
OPI team over there.
Yeah, we actually survived. It was a good day. Thank you.
Excellent.
Excellent. Excellent. It's great to see the smile on your face, Susan.
Oh, Dylan finally turned on his video.
Hi. Yeah. Thank
Hi,
you.
Dylan.
Hi, Calais.
Hey, Dylan. Did Linda tell you what she's doing tonight?
Yeah, she did. Yeah, I'm going to tune
Oh
in.
my God.
Yeah, so exciting. Yeah, I just want to say hi to everybody and thank you so much. I think you're doing a great job with facilitating this, and yeah, and I want to say hi. So hi and bye.
Yeah. Thank you, Dylan, for taking notes too.
Oh yeah, did you get them? I think it's under.
I got them.
Okay. Okay. Awesome.
Thank you.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. I'm going to stop the recording actually.
All right.